plotters, welcome back to Plotting Success. And we have Callie Ott here. Callie, this is where I brag about you while you have to just sit there and be pretty and lovely and
My worst
maybe
nightmare,
laugh.
honestly.
So Callie is amazing. She gave me a list of things that she has done. One of the things I don't see on here that I wanted to talk about really quickly, is your improv, like the improv stuff that you've done, like the musical stuff. That sounded musical, right?
Yeah, that was like one of the first teams I was on in LA. I guess 8 years ago, and then I'm on a new team called the Found Family Band. I was actually the first musical improv team I was on was Cats for Rent at IO West. That closed. It was in Hollywood, but that was my first musical improv team, and I only been doing improv for like a year. And to make a house team, and it was like some kind of miracle. I don't know how I got on that team. Because like even they were like, I guess you're on the team, but like you've only done improv 101, and I'm like, I don't know. So I got on that team. Probably did the worst improv anybody could possibly do, but hey, it was fun while it lasted.
Okay, so just going into a little bit more detail, plotters. A lot of you all, you literally plot outlines. Some of you guys are edge-of-seaters. Callie takes it to an extreme. Like when she's talking about improv, she is making musicals on the spot. What's the scariest thing about that?
Everything. I mean, even now I'm scared when I do it because it's the fear of the unknown. It's like but that's why I love doing it, because I like doing things that are scary and that challenge me. So yeah.
Circle that moment, you all. Say it again,
Yeah.
Callie. I didn't hear it.
I like doing things that are scary and that challenge me, because that's where the real growth comes from. So like, I don't know, I've had really bad shows and then I'm like, oh, this was the worst. And then I've had really great shows and I'm like, well, I can't recreate that because it's improv. But yeah, oh man, to be an audience member and watch musical improv, you're just hoping, you're like, oh, fingers crossed, this is good.
But even if it's not, it's amazing because like you all are working as a team to try to like get that ship from sinking, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You have to commit so hard. Like somebody might do something that you're like, what the hell are you even talking about? You're like, all right, well, I guess like this is the thing. Like we got to commit harder to this, because if you don't, then that's when the ship really sinks.
That's so incredibly cool.
Yeah.
Improv, I don't know very much about improv. One of the things I do know is the yes and I think that is so helpful for writers because you're going into like you have done some really great shows, Dear Jeff, and then the newest one, um, Final Girl, right?
Yeah, Final Girl.
Final
Yeah.
Girl, yeah, which was amazing. So when you're writing, right, like there's the thing that tries to censor you and everything. Does the improv help you with the censorship?
Oh yeah. Oh, it totally does. I like to try and make it bad at first. I'm like, that's the challenge for myself. I'm like, I'm gonna see how bad I can make this. I'm gonna see how stupid I can write this character. Because then it just takes away the perfectionism, because I think I'm just a natural perfectionist when it comes to writing. Like I'm like, oh, it has to be perfect, it has to be neat. But then when I give myself the challenge of like, no, let's actually make this bad, then it opens me up and I feel free.
I freaking love that. Callie's gonna be on our show more than once. We have a few episodes coming out. She's gonna be talking about her journey like into writing. Right now, I think we just had a perfect segue into you talking about improv though as your specialty, right?
Yeah.
So for people who haven't done improv, what do you think that you can say about improv that would be really helpful to them to be thinking about? Like, I love you saying, just try to really make it bad. Is there anything else that you can think of?
Support. Your job should be to make the other person look good and look really smart. Like that to me is a good improviser. If I'm on stage with somebody and that's where the yes anding comes from, is like the enthusiastically just being like, oh yeah, like I love what you said. Yeah, let's like add on to that. That's the thing. So let's instead of trying to do a different thing, being like, oh, I want to add on to what you just said so that you're supporting your scene partner.
So when you're doing it, because you've written screenplays and plays, and I think what you're saying also applies to people who write novels. So are you saying then that you are just yes-anding with yourself, and you're like, okay, this is where we, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, yeah, I guess so. But then it's also like, you need the conflict. So it's like not everything. I don't know. It's like you want there to be like struggle and conflict, but you don't want to be like fighting on stage. So you have to find a way to like yes and them without just doing what they say. If that makes any sense. I can't like give a specific example right now, but yeah, I think that's when improv feels right.
Yeah, what you're talking about too is also an acting thing. I oftentimes say that writers should take acting classes because you are making conflict, right? Actors have to make something. Oftentimes, the writing is really bad. No offense to anyone, but like the writing just feels stale or something. And the actors are still having to do something, right? And you make conflict, right? On
Yeah.
stage, right?
Yeah, and as an actor, like I want that conflict because then that's
Mm-hmm.
when like the real acting comes out. It's like, oh, this is the challenge that like I am here to go do this thing. Like this is the thing that I want to accomplish in the scene. So if somebody's making it challenging for me, then it activates me as the character or as the actor where I'm like, oh no, this is my motivation. This is the thing that I want. If you're making it harder for me to get this thing, then that kind of opens me up, more creatively to be like, well, then how am I going to get this thing that I want?
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. We gotta pause on that because you said so many things that act like make sense to actors, but like writers would be like, hold up. So motivation, right? You're doing motivation for each character, right? Like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
instead of acting, it's just you on stage. Like, is that difficult? Like when you're like juggling characters at all?
I think my favorite way of like writing characters or like doing characters, and I just kind of realized this is like when I'm writing like the comedic relief characters in my shows, I like to give them something. I don't know if the word is like a juxtaposition. Like, so like for Final Girl, it's like the 911 operator, she just wants a friend, but like she wants a friend so badly that she accidentally keeps like letting people die because she's just like competing with them. And so like
Which is one of the best parts.
yeah, which is just so stupid, but it's like I feel like that's a real want in people. Like it's a real
That's her motivation, right?
yeah, that's their
And her motivation creates conflict with everyone else, right? It creates
and
ripples.
it creates conflict within herself and with other people because she's like, I just did the thing again, and like all I want is a friend. So it's just yeah, like I like giving my characters like a silly kind of motivation, but it's like very truthful and authentic to like who they are. Because that's when I feel the most free. Cause I'm like, this is so ridiculous, but it makes sense to me because I'm not playing the comedy of the scene. I'm playing like the truth of the character and their one, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I saw the show, and sure, it is ridiculous, but that's the genre, right? Like it's supposed to be that way, but like things that are really funny can also be really sad, and it's really sad she has no friends, right? Another thing I wanted to talk about that you brought up is that she is not she's questionable. She has questionable motives, right? And I
Yeah.
think a lot of writers try to write somebody who's just too goody two shoes, right? They
Mm.
have to hit all these boxes, like save the cat. You got to save the cat. The person's got to be like somebody you want to get behind. But I got behind her, even though she was a little bit selfish at times.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the structure of things, I think like this is something that I personally struggle with, like as a writer, is yeah, there's like a specific structure that that we read in books like Save the Cat, and which is a great book. Like that was like the first writing book I ever read that really opened my eyes as to like, oh, what is writing, or like how to define it in a way. But what I loved about writing my solo shows is like it kind of felt like there was no box to be in. It felt like I could just kind of like do whatever the hell I wanted. Cause I would research, you know, one person shows online. I couldn't really find anything. And I was like, okay, I guess there's just no rules. And so that
I just
just,
want to snap.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that opened me up in a way that I could just have fun. And it reminded me of like being a kid and playing. And
Mm.
I think that when I'm having fun writing, and writing's never fun all the time. Like there's some like not great times where actually I would say like 70% of the time I'm not having fun writing. But I just have to work through the not having fun part, then to get to the fun part. So yeah, like the structure, I would say that kind of trips me up sometimes. Like even with like pilot writing, oh man, The Hero Succeeds. Like I love that book. It's a really great pilot writing book.
Hero
Um,
succeeds.
yeah. And but I would catch myself, I'd be like trying to hit all those like beats that they say in
Mm.
the book, and then it kind of stifles me a little bit. So for me, it's like finding the balance. It's working with the balance of like what is the structure, and then like freeing yourself of that structure. But you have to learn to walk or and crawl before you can walk, I guess. I don't know. So I'm still like very much learning pilot writing and how that goes.
Well, okay, so I'm just gonna randomly pull a book. Let's
Yeah.
make it not a weird book. Let's just do this, and I'm not
Definitely.
gonna show the cover. So Callie, what you're saying, which I love, I'm just randomly making this physical, is you're like, okay, so a book will tell you these are the things you have to hit, and you have to stay in this, right?
Mhm.
But what you're saying is, nah, I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go here. How much of this stuff, this crazy, like, I'm just gonna write ugly, I'm gonna write bad, like how much of it do you keep, and how much of it is adapted into your story? Like, can you talk to me about that process?
I um I like to write all over the place at
Mm-hmm.
first. Like I really do. I when I write like my musicals, I usually start with like the songs, which I don't know if that's how other people do that, but like to me that's like the height of the emotion of the scene. It's like this is why I'm writing the scene in the first place, is
Mm.
because this is the song we're seeing, because these two characters, like there's this thing that's, if your characters have, they want to say something so bad, they have so much emotion but they can't say it, so they have to sing it because there's no other way that they can express it. And
Mm.
so for me, yeah, when I'm writing, I start with the songs first for my musicals, and then I kind of like start to fill in the pieces.
Are
Yeah.
you writing the things that you, well, I guess it could be a few things, but are you writing the things that excite you the most? Or are you writing the things you know, or is it both, or is it neither?
I probably do the things that excite me the most first, and then I'm like, gosh, I got like the hard part now to do. But I'd rather do that first, I guess.
I talk about this though because when you write something that you are excited about, oftentimes it opens up things that you weren't excited about before, right? Because now you have more information that excites you, right? Am I making that up?
No, that's so true. I when I'm writing the things that I'm excited about the most first, I just kind of organically then get
Mhm.
to a place where I'm like, oh, like I didn't mean to do that, but now that's like, oh, that's
Mhm.
connected to like what I just wrote. And I didn't do that intentionally. It just kind of flowed and just kind of organically happened. Like when I was writing Final Girl, not to keep like referring back to that, but
Please do. It's a great show. We're gonna. Can we include links to it below?
yeah.
Okay.
When I was writing Final Girl, I created, like, I'm referencing the 911 operator again, like that just wants a friend. So like, I believe that what is the line she says? I believe that if you are fighting for your life, friendship is the one thing that's going to keep you alive. Um, which is so ridiculous if you really think about it. But then and so I wrote that. And then
Yeah.
as I continued writing the story, and like for me, the third act of any story is the hardest, that's the most challenging for me, because it feels like, this is the big moment, the big ending, and you want it to have the
Mm.
payoff. But when I was writing the ending, and it's based on a true story, it's like my real life experience, I talk about how my friends, from Callie, the Callie character, the straight man of the show, I talk about how my friends are the ones who like saved me in this like abusive situation. And so like I didn't realize that like I had written this 911 operator character. She says something that sounds so
Oh
ridiculous,
wow.
but
Oh
then it
wow. Yeah.
completely ties in to like Callie's experience in the end. That's like really what saved me was my friends. Like they were the ones who like made me promise not to talk to this guy ever again. They're the ones that paid for me to go to therapy. They're the ones that, you know, helped me overcome this really tough situation, and I wasn't alone. So it was just, I remember like I had written the whole show, and then I was like rehearsing it with my director, and then I was like, wait, I didn't even realize that that completely tied in to the beginning. Like I didn't do that on purpose.
Okay, so one of the things, I don't know if you have processed this, but one of the things you allowed yourself to do, which is really brilliant, is to allow your subconscious to do some of the work for you. You actually did mean to do it. It was just not your conscious self.
Yeah. It was like, yeah, my subconscious, yeah,
Just
they filled in the lines for me. They were just like, I and I think that too, I think sometimes like as writers, we want to like consciously be like, I'm
Mhm.
so brilliant, like I'm so smart, like look at me, I'm gonna tie this into the end, and like it's gonna, and then it's when you're, yeah, when you're like psyche does that for you, and you're like, oh shit, like I didn't even have to like try and be smart or like do that. It just kind of, yeah, developed on its own. I guess not on its own. It's like through me.
this is brilliant because this ties back to what you were saying that 75, you said 75% is not fun, right?
Yeah, I said like 70% is like not fun.
70%. So when you're hitting that pain point, that like discomfort where you don't know, it's usually the stuff that you don't know what's going to happen, right? You get stuck certain places, right? Am I right?
Oh yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
when you hit those walls, what happens is you let that go, you go into things that you like writing, and you're allowing your subconscious to find the solutions for you as you move on. A lot of writers, they will keep hitting something over and over again until they're not excited to write it instead of just moving on and allowing the subconscious to do work. Callie, this is so good. You're saying so many awesome things.
Yes, finally. I'm finally saying awesome things.
I love your laugh.
It's really low right now. I don't know why. My voice is like extremely deep at the moment.
Well, Callie, if you ever have like a maniacal character, I would put that in your suitcase as one of your laughs.
Thank you.
Um, Another thing I had as a question, but I didn't want to interrupt you, was when you're writing in chaos, right? How do you put? What is the process to put order back into it,
Mm, mm. Ooh,
so you don't stay in the woods? You know what I mean?
right. I I think of it kind of as like working on a really intense like puzzle, and you're like, oh my god, like I gotta get the edge pieces
I love
first,
that.
and then I gotta like, okay, like, well, this is a sky, these are all blue, how am I supposed to freaking figure this out? But it's like
Good.
as you start to get, you know, some of the sections together, then you're like, okay, maybe I can approach that like blue sky where like literally all the pieces look the same. And so then, yeah, I like to see everything like splayed out in front of me. So a lot of times, instead of just like on my laptop, I'm scrolling through, I'll like print it out so I can just like physically see where I'm at and like, okay, this section doesn't make any sense. So like, what do I need here that's gonna connect these pieces? Or like, oh, this song that I wrote, I'm like, I'm obsessed with it and I love it, but it doesn't really fit in the show anymore. So I kind of have to scratch that. But now it's actually just clicked something else in my brain where I'm like, okay, this song doesn't fit here, but now I actually know what I want to sing about here. So yeah, it's just like fitting, for me, it's fitting those puzzle pieces together and just being okay with it taking time. I'm such an impatient person. And like, thankfully, I gave myself a deadline, but I gave myself enough time within, like, I was like, I want to do Fringe of 2024. You know, it was like September of 2023. And I was like, okay, well, I got to have something by like February, which, you know, isn't a whole lot of time, but it was enough time to where like I had a realistic deadline. So if it was any time sooner, I'd kind of probably be freaking the F out, but I was able to work with that time that I gave myself.
This is so good, Callie. Thank you for having this be the first interview. I can't wait for the other interviews. And I love how you talked about the chaos.
Mm.
I'm gonna take that into my own brain, right? Like just write unpretty. I think it's really important.
I love writing in chaos. Like I I will just like I'll be like, okay, I want to write a song that has this kind of feel to it. And I'll just like literally go on hikes or like go on like walks and just be like, okay, I'm just gonna like sing to myself. And people are probably gonna look at me like I'm crazy, but I'm gonna make really bad songs. And then in in Final Girl, like there was maybe like 4 songs in that show that I was like, I'm just feeling so blocked. I don't even know where to begin. But then just taking a walk and going outside and kind of brainstorming with myself, that was what really got me through. And then got me into a place where I was like, oh no, these songs are actually really good.
Well, Callie, you're a natural writer. Like you're coming up with ideas for yourself to help your subconscious work. That takes some people like a long time to figure out.
Well, it did
So
take me a long time to figure out, I will say. I mean, I'm 35. And I didn't really fully start writing until like 2019. But the growth that has happened even before then, I remember trying to like write sketches and being like, this makes no sense. How do I even do this? Like in my mind, this makes sense. But then when people read the words out loud, it just sounds terrible. But I worked through that resistance because I feel like that's when a lot of people give up is because they're like,
mm,
this is a new skill that I don't want to learn and I don't want to train myself because it's just too daunting. It's like, I don't know. But then if you feel like, okay, well, I'm up to try it and like to see if I can improve with time. And then you do. And I think it's the Ira Glass quote that's just like, it's about your taste,
mm,
and like the taste you have as an artist, it takes time to develop that to match your skills in writing. And I think I'm
mm.
still even, you know, working at that. Like it's not even in a place that I fully want it to be yet, but I'm excited to just keep growing and keep learning. And everything I write, I feel like I get better and better. So
Callie, this was wonderful. Um, if if there's somebody out there, I think this is like a great talk for people who are perfectionists. Like if there's somebody out there that is a perfectionist, like what is one sentence that you would say to them?
ooh, hold on. I feel like I just wrote something to myself about being a perfectionist. I might have written it when I was really tired. Oh, okay. Maybe this is good.
Yeah.
I wrote, perfectionism is me trying to not disappoint anyone. Um, so, like, in my mind, when
Mm,
I'm being a perfectionist, it's because I'm caring about what other people think
mm,
versus just like doing what I want to do.
mm,
And as somebody who's like, quote unquote people pleaser, or I've also heard it defined as like self abandonment. It's like, oh, I think that perfectionism is a good, like we've all been taught like, oh, being a perfectionist is like really good, but it's actually like such a hindrance to artists and writers. And I mean, obviously there's some good things because it's like, oh, double check your work, but but honestly, like the spelling and the grammar is like my biggest issue when I write. Like I'm just like, it's fine, I'll look at that later. So it makes no sense. But yeah, I think like my perfectionism stems from not wanting to disappoint other people,
mm.
and then I just start to disappoint myself in return because I'm not being authentic to who I am. I'm like using it as an excuse.
Thank you, Callie. So where can we find you? Where can we spy on you? That's
Uh,
unabused.
my Instagram is Callie E Ott, so CALLIE, another E, and then OTT. That's my Instagram. I don't have a TikTok yet. I'm not that cool, but maybe one day.
We'll include her Instagram below in the description box below. We have some awesome Plotting Success special guests planned. To make sure you don't miss out, tap subscribe on the Plotting Success channel and like us so you can receive all of our information. We have some hacks, like some tricks on like making sure you don't have writer's block. We'll include all of those links below, as well as the links to Callie. And that is it for this time. We have more interviews coming up with Callie Ott, so make sure you subscribe and like and let YouTube know that you want to see more of these episodes. Yay! All right. High five, plotters. High five, Callie!